Okay, Don, in our previous conversations we were talking about stress, and I think that, you know, every woman in their life has multiple forms of stress, and I think my definition of stress is completely different than what you were explaining to me. Can you further expound on that?
Well, look, stress is a big word, right? I mean, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So let's really get definitive about it and define it down from the perspective of how are we going to help you get the results that you want. Because what we've talked about there was how stress, the big word, is affecting your overall mind and body, and how that's leading to the symptoms, right, and to the problems. So back up and let's talk about this whole idea of what stress is, because there's good stress and there's bad stress. You had alluded to that earlier, like, well, everybody's under stress, right? Well, good stress would be an example. An example would be like a good workout. Putting that kind of stress on your body is actually a benefit, because your body has to respond to that stress and it gets stronger as a result of it. So that's good stress.
It's runner's high.
Exactly right.
I know, runner's high.
But then we have what we consider bad forms of stress.
Okay.
And that's the kind of stress where, let's say you're in a hurry, you get into traffic, and now you're just beside yourself, right? And this is just eating away at you. What's happening there is you're creating a stress response that's designed, the way your body is designed to handle a stress response like that is to put all that stress hormone in your system and then have an all-out burst of activity, because that's called the fight or flight response. When you can't use or utilize the energy that's being given to you as a result of those hormones, now you've got a big problem, because what are you doing? You're sitting there stewing in your own toxic soup of stress hormones, and they're just pulling all this resource out of your system, and you're not finishing the stress response. That's very damaging, forms of stress. Now here's where I separate myself from what everyone else is talking about when it comes to stress, because I've learned that the big hormones that we talked about earlier, they're connected to one another. When one goes up, the other compensates, and when that one compensates and goes down, then the other compensates and goes up. So they're connected. So insulin is literally connected to adrenaline and cortisol. Remember what I said? To me, this is the definition of stress that debilitates, degenerates, and damages your hormones, brain chemistry, and metabolism. Okay. That causes the symptoms, and it is. Anything that causes abuse, overstimulation, and spiking of those major hormones. Dominant burden, like I mentioned before, that is a very severe damaging form of stress. So when I say stress, I'm looking at it like, how does that stress cause breakdown in your mind and body? Quick lesson and understanding in those two hormones will solve that for you. I said that sugar, or eating refined carbohydrates, is this big problem and a dominant burden. But people are thinking, well, how is that a form of stress? Remember what I said, insulin is connected to adrenaline and cortisol. Here's how it works. When you put this large amount of, whether it's starch or sugar, refined carbohydrates, in your body, your blood sugar goes dramatically high. Your brain then has a panic situation on its hand, because what does it hate more than anything else? What's diabetes? High blood sugar. So we know that elevated blood sugar is very damaging to the body. So when all of a sudden it's just like this huge influx of sugar into the bloodstream, the brain just absolutely panics and goes, I have to remove this and get it down to manageable levels. So what does it do? Sends a message to insulin to go in, remove as much of that sugar as it possibly can. But remember, when you have an overstimulation, overreaction like that, you're going to keep pouring insulin into your system, and what's going to happen is it's going to eventually remove too much sugar out of your bloodstream. Okay. Now think about how they're connected, because once you remove too much sugar, guess what happens to your brain now? Now it goes, oh my God, I don't have enough sugar in my bloodstream. So then it sends a message to adrenaline and cortisol and says, you've got to go into the muscles and the liver and pull out that storage sugar that I have and put it back into the bloodstream, because the brain doesn't tolerate not having its own fuel supply. You see? So stress then becomes anytime you stimulate one of these major hormones, big hormones, you're causing an overreaction and stimulating the other. So eating sugar and refined carbohydrate is identical. It's the same thing to sitting there getting yelled at your boss or getting mad at your husband, or, you know, somebody leaving the toilet seat up.
It's definitely something you overlook. You know, not every woman knows that.
But no, right? Who's thinking of that?
Thinking of that?
When you sit down with your doctor, is he telling you that?
Yeah.
So the two combine together, where hormones, metabolism, brain chemistry, stress, all that. Well, you have to look and understand all of that to be able to put that together and to realize that if I can calm down both of those dominant burden responses, I can lower that burden of degenerative, unrelenting, physically, mentally, emotionally damaging stress down to a place where now your body can manage it. Just like it manages exercise and turns that stress, which is on the muscle in your cardiovascular system, into something good. That's what you're after, is to get yourself to a place where your physiology and your mind is on top of the stress and you're not being depleted by it. In that process is how you're going to solve the PMS, the premenopause, the menopause, the sleep problems, the low sex drive, the fatigue. That's how you solve it. You improve your body. You stop this unrelenting, damaging form of stress. Everything then is a cascade. It's a positive domino effect. Everything will begin to come back. That's what the inevitability protocol is. That's why it's focused and aimed to do exactly what it is that I had described to you before.